I'm interviewing Joe Merritt in Bloomingdale, Georgia on June 29th, 1995. Oh, thank you for moving. That was very nice of you. Mr. Merritt, just to get the sound check, could you please tell me where and when you were born?
I was born the 23rd of December, 1918 in Brookwood, Georgia.
Okay. Mr. Merritt, how old were you when you got your first job?
About 8 years old.
About 8 years old. What was it?
Delivering groceries.
And when did you get your first union job?
In 1939 at Norfolk, Virginia. Building a dry dock. I went up there and went to work and joined the union in 1939 as an iron worker.
Right.
It was kind of odd that the business agent for the Norfolk local union, he came by one afternoon and lined up about 15 of us iron workers that didn't have books, and told us he was going to give us an opportunity to join the union. And I looked on the seat of his old Model A Ford, and he had a 45 automatic sitting there, so I decided I'd join.
Were you glad you joined?
Yes, but in the group that went up there with me, there was 4 of us. I became the business agent in Savannah and went on to the International Union. Another one of the fellows, Billy O'Brien, he went to St. Louis and became business agent in the St. Louis local union for the iron workers. And the other man, one of the other men was Gene Messer. He went to Tampa, Florida, and became the business agent in Tampa. And the 4th man came back to Savannah with me and became one of the leaders of the local union in Savannah. So out of the 4 of us that went to Norfolk, 4 of us become quite prominent in the labor movement.
Must have been something in the Norfolk water, I think. Well, so
No, it was Mr. Sproul and his pistol.
Tell me about your path from Norfolk back to Savannah.
When we finished the job in Norfolk, I came back to Savannah. At that time, it was under the Charleston local union, and things was pretty rough around Savannah. So a group of us got together and formed the local union in Savannah, 709, and then I became the president of the local union. I stayed with it until I become business agent and went on the international payroll out of there.
Well, what made things so rough in Savannah?
I beg your pardon?
How was it that things were so rough in Savannah?
I didn't understand.
Well, you said things were rough in Savannah.
Yes,
so
yes, I do understand now. Well, the business agent in Charleston, he only came over here once every 2 weeks to pick up the money and make his collections, and he never represented anyone in Savannah. And we never saw him but every 2 weeks, so we decided we needed more representation than that. And I got with a group of the fellows here in Savannah, and we petitioned in 1941 and 1942, and chartered this local union in Savannah. You know, 47, pardon, correction, 46 or 47 was when we chartered the local union in Savannah.
Mm-hmm. Right after the war, yeah.
And then after that, the local union in Savannah developed in one of the best local unions in the whole international.
Savannah's known as a union town.
We had 12, 14, 1,600 members at one time.
What kind of work did they do?
Construction,
Yeah.
the erection of structural steel.
Mm-hmm.
We was fortunate that the H-bone plant in Aiken, South Carolina was in our territory. So we did pretty good.
And you worked down on the docks, building down on the docks either?
No, I never worked on docks. I worked on gantry cranes that was on docks. But,
Okay.
I'm never a longshoreman. No.
No, no, I didn't mean longshoremen, I meant building docks, but what do I know about building docks?
Yeah, well, docks is usually built out of, a lot of the docks are built out of wood at that time.
Oh, really?
You know, wooden piling.
Okay. Well now, did you have anybody, well, tell me about what your duties were as president and then business agent. What'd you do? Besides carry a pistol.
President of the local union, you was the authority in the local union. You was chaired all the meetings, made all the appointments to vacancies. Chairman of the executive board, which is seven men, and the president of the local union, along with the executive board, actually, they control the local union. Run it, the business agent handled it in between the meetings of the executive board. He worked at the pleasure of the executive board. I was a job superintendent, and worked 40 hours a week, in addition to my duties as a local union office.
Which of these jobs did you prefer? What was your best job in the labor movement? Your favorite?
Are you talking about when I was in construction or when I was in the labor?
How about both? Give me one of each.
Well, I had several jobs of distinction among in the construction business, like superintendent of the iron workers on additions on the chemical plants and paper mills. I supervised as high as 150 iron workers. I enjoyed it. I didn't ever think I wanted to be a business agent or union representative other than the president of the local union. However, the business agent of the local union and I become kind of at odds, and I decided that he had done something that he should make amends to, and he refused to do it. So I advised him that I'm going to run for business agent in the next 3 months, and gave him an opportunity to make amends, which he refused to do. So I ran against him. The election was 375 votes cast. Not election, he got 55 votes. So I assumed the business agent's job and stayed with it for 4 years. And then the International gave me a position as an acting general organizer. And I stayed with that a year, and then the general president made me a full general organizer. And my duties were all over the United States.
Tell me about organizing. Tell me about organizing. What was that like?
I never did what you would actually call organizing. We left that to the local unions. The local unions at that time would straighten up a job and maybe take in 10, 12, 15 members of the contractor that they had agreed to go in agreement with. So my duties as a general organizer for the International Union was to supervise and service the local unions for the United States and Canada. Such as jurisdiction disputes with the carpenters, or jurisdiction disputes with the pipe fitters, internal problems in the local union. Some of the local unions were mishandling money, funds, and you had to go in with an auditor and make adjustments. Sometimes relieve them of their duties, put the local union under supervision, hand it to the best of your ability. quite interesting.
Yeah. Did you find that people welcomed you, or
Not
kind
when
of
you, not when you was going to reprimand them.
receiverships were welcome, I'm sure.
Not when you're going to make them straighten up.
And you always came back to the Savannah area, though.
I used to leave here on a Sunday night. I had several schedules. I'd leave on a Sunday night, catch the train on the night sleeper to Washington, and get there at 7 o'clock Monday morning and go to the office, attend the 10 o'clock meeting, and I was assigned to an organizing program in Washington. We organized our part of it, but the other trades, I don't think they did. But, we straightened ours up. We signed a contract with one of the biggest steel erectors, non-union steel erectors in that part of the country. About 180 men. Then, when I got to Washington, in addition to that duties, I was able to get an assignment to go to Chicago. And I'd go to Chicago, come back to Washington, go to Dallas, come back to Washington. Then on a Friday afternoon, I would come home. I would always catch the National Airline flight out of Washington. I got there at 2:30 and put me in here around 5:30. And I would spend Saturday, Sunday, go back out again Sunday night. And that was, that was the standard procedure for about 15, 16 years.
Were you married then?
Oh yeah, living here in this place.
Wow.
I had left here on a Sunday night and went to Washington, and then get an assignment to go to Miami. Go to Miami and make a meeting in Miami, and then get an assignment to go to San Diego and leave on a Tuesday morning to San Diego. Make a union meeting in San Diego that night, straighten out some problems there. And then the next day, which would be a Wednesday, go up to Frisco and take care of a problem in Frisco. And then go to Chicago and make a meeting in the Chicago airport, business agents, contractors. And go back to Washington, and then come home on that same Friday afternoon.
Ooh, and you did that for 15 years, huh?
Yeah, did that for 15 years. I guess I would have about 7 million miles on airlines.
A lot of frequent flyer miles if they did it then, huh?
Well, I picked up a lot of frequent flyer stuff, and I gave it away. A lot of times I converted back into the international was paying the bill. I figured that if it was paying for the bill, they should have the free flights.
Yeah. Do any places stand out in your memory?
I beg your pardon?
Do any of those places you visited stand out in your memory?
I guess the Washington was a favorite place, and I like Washington. I worked out the district council office in Washington. Every night, you would leave the hotel and go over to a reception and meet a lot of prominent people like the Kennedys, the Monahan, the Speaker of the House. I had a very good friend that was the doorkeeper of the house. his assistant, Captain Cleveland, who was very close to me. And, I had an enjoyable time in Washington. It was hard work, and one of the main reasons, I guess, that I liked Washington so well was we stayed in the Hamilton Hotel, and the Hamilton Hotel was a mecca for all the labor unions in the whole United States. If they have an international representative or a business agent or anybody affiliated with a local union came to Washington, they always checked into the Hamilton Hotel.
Ah, so it's kind of like a...
You'd go in the hotel maybe at night and see somebody you hadn't seen in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was, everybody stayed in the Hamilton. Carpenters, the whole works.
Well, what did your union guys do when you got together?
Well, you just sit in the lobby and talk, and maybe go into the Purple Tree and have a couple of beers, and go out for dinner. It was enjoyable. Nothing rowdy or nothing.
Well, no, I wasn't suggesting.
It's the mine workers used to try to give you a little trouble with the Purple Tree. Not too much.
The mine workers are like that, though. Did you expect things to turn out the way they did?
No, not really. I never anticipated or planned on anything like a job with International, because I don't know, they kind of made you believe that if the man wanted you, he'd hire you. If he didn't want you, there ain't nothing you could do. So I just did my job, and best of my ability, and took care of my problems, and didn't have any serious problems over the years with the International. Paid our per capita on time. And I had good friends among them.
Yeah.
I never expected to be on the International staff. I didn't expect to be elevated to a vice president.
Why did you agree to do it? Why did you agree to do it?
Well, it was a prestige. Ask a guy why we won't. Maybe you ask Clinton, why did he be president?
Oh, it's a mystery to me.
Same thing, it's just if you've got a class, a strata of class in labor unions, and the international positions are always the elite. And when I went on the international payroll, I think about 4 or 5 of my sister local unions, business agents, they felt real miffed about it. But it's a plum. It's a plum. The pay is excellent. Travel is first class. Hotels are first class. They give you, you have all your, you have your air travel card, you have your Hertz rental car cards. And they expect you to work.
Yeah.
I remember that I was in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I got a telegram to be in Nashville, Tennessee, the next morning at 10 o'clock. I got the telegram about 2 in the afternoon, and I was assigned into Wilmington, North Carolina to attend the 8 o'clock meeting, and I knew it wouldn't get through until 11, and no planes out of there at that hour of the night. And I called the boss. I said, Doc, the meeting here tonight is pretty important, and I should be here. He said, yes, I agree with you there. I said, and tomorrow morning out in Nashville is pretty important too, but there's no way that I can stay here till 10 o'clock make that one over there. I said, do you want to send somebody else to it? And I always will remember what he said. He said very quietly, he said, Joe, he said, the boss gives you your travel card, but here's your driving card, your American Express card. He said, my good man, your travel arrangements is your problem. I don't give a goddamn how you get there if you buy a bicycle and ride it if you want to.
I bet you made both
See
of
that?
things.
So when I got through that meeting, I was able to get an airplane that stopped at every stop in Knoxville, Tennessee. It dead ended in Knoxville. And I called and made some arrangements to have a Hertz you drive it into Knoxville Airport at 2 o'clock that morning. I picked up my Hertz at 2 o'clock and I got into the Andrew Johnson Hotel at 8:30 or 9 o'clock the next morning, and the meeting started at 10. So I made it.
Yeah. I bet you couldn't not
Well,
make it after that.
I never questioned dual assignments after that. I just went ahead and made them. One way or the other. Now, he would have paid for me to charter an airplane, a light aircraft. I could charter a light aircraft, and they would have paid the bill. But I didn't know that at that time. I had never had any experience with it. But he let me know that they would pick up the tab if I wanted to buy a bicycle, put it on the bill. Be there.
Just as well you didn't have to bike. What was
My
his name?
travel arrangements are not his problem.
What was his name?
Doc Hungate.
Doc Hungate.
He was the assistant to the general president.
Who were some other memorable people from the labor movement, or otherwise?
I guess George Meany was one of the best that's ever been. I guess Meany was. But in my organization, I go back to a man called P.J. Moran. They called him Patty Moran. And he was involved in that bombing of the Los Angeles newspaper. He pulled time for it. And whenever he made general president of the ironworkers back in the turn of the century when the ironworkers was very at the low ebb. And he brought them up to a first-class organization. And then the man succeeded him was a man by the name of Lyons, Lyons, John H. Lyons, Sr. And that's the one that I went to work for.
Mm-hmm.
And he was first class. And then he died in 1948. He died around 1952, I guess. 1952. And his son, John H. Lyons Jr., was elected by the General Executive Council. At that time, I was not a member of that council. They elected him, and I served under him until he died. And he was one of the finest men I ever met. John Lyons Jr., Jack Lyons.
What made him such a good man?
Pardon?
Why do you say he was such a good man?
He was a college graduate, very polished, very much of a gentleman, and he was an iron fist and a velvet glove. He knew when to put the muscle on, but he was a very polished man. He associated with people like Johnson. He and Johnson, first name, basis. And not very much that he wasn't knowledgeable on. I remember when this Russian that we brought into this country, was it Solzhenitsyn?
Yeah.
He was in hiding. The Lyons hosted his stay in the United States for about a month.
Wow.
So it was a good connection Lyons had. Lyons had a home over in Maryland, kind of secluded like this, guest house. And that man stayed over there for several weeks while he was in the United States. And we didn't know it. Nobody knew it but Jack and Dorothy. He was a perfect host. Perfect host. And, anything that he went through or anything he did was first class. He had a reception or cocktail party. It went first class.
Yeah.
There was nothing out, no excitement. Very calm.
Hmm.
He was a great general president.
You mentioned George Meany. You got to meet George Meany.
Huh?
Did you get to meet George Meany personally?
Yeah, I got pictures with him. Yeah,
Oh, yeah? Under what circumstances did you meet him?
Conventions.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'd be a sergeant at arms at Southern conventions.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very capable man. I used to laugh at his language. He was Brooklyn. And he didn't say toilet, he said turlet. Turlet.
Yeah, my husband's from Brooklyn, too.
Turlet.
And Moran, did you ever get to meet Moran, or was he
Which Moran?
Patty Moran.
Oh, yeah. I was a sergeant at arms in 1948 at the convention in St. Louis when President Lyons, his father, come elected. Oh, yeah, yes,
Mm-hmm.
sir. He was a tough one.
Yeah.
He was a brawler. He was mean. He had a couple of fists on him as big as a picnic ham. He was mean.
Do you think he was good for the iron workers or bad for the iron
He was
workers?
good. He brought them to where they was at, turned it over to when he become too old to handle it, he retired, turned it over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. He didn't, in other words, he didn't send somebody like me to do something. He went himself.
Very hands-on.
Huh?
Very much a hands-on kind of guy, huh?
Yeah, fist on kind of.
Yeah.
I remember one of the boys in Washington was telling me about the Local 5. They had a couple of hard-headed union representatives work for the local union, and they would define President Morin. And President Morin sent them word he's going to put the local union under supervision. And, when they put it under supervision, they pick the charter up and confiscate the charter under which they're working under the international. And Eddie was telling me that the meeting was in a half a story, had a small and a half story up. Hot, he was sitting in a window. All the windows open, he's sitting in the window. And said, they heard he was in town. And they thought he might be coming to the meeting. And so they were waiting on him. He said the president was down at the end of the hall, and the doors at the back, and said they heard the door when it kicked open downstairs. And he said, they heard it. He had big old feet. He was a big man. Hair snow white, red, ruddy complexion. Typical Irishman. And said the door kicked open. And said when the door opens, said two men come through the door, jump to the side. He said, Joe, for Christ's sakes, he said both of them had two big .45 automatics in each hand. He said, that old man come through that damn door. He said, he went down to that place and he reached up and got the chart off the wall. And he said, it was a big charter. And he said, he took it and hit the damn president with it over the head. Glass flew. He said, he picked that chart up out that wall, wadded it up, stuck it in his pocket. He said, you bastards out of business.
Yeah, he's a tough man.
Yeah. And he told me, he said, he said when he hit him with that chart, he said, Joe, he said, I just fell over backward back to one. He said, I didn't want to stay around. But he said that he didn't hear no pistol shooting, nothing. So a few minutes, said the old man come out that door with them 2 bodyguards he had with him. He said, there was another car waiting on him. He said, he got in the car and took off. He said, they was out of business. He said, we was out of business for about 6 months when we put it back.
Go bird. How are we doing on tape? Oh, we got plenty. So you were in when the AFL-CIO merger happened.
I mean,
You were in when
yeah,
the merger happened.
I was a business agent then.
Mm-hmm.
And, I didn't go to that convention. We sent the business agent because I succeeded to that convention.
Okay.
He went to the merger.
How did you feel about the merger, though? Did you think it was a good idea or
I
bad
didn't
idea?
question it. I mean, I felt like that if my boss agreed with it, and Meany agreed with it, I couldn't see nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
I like to stay in line. It's worked out real. I think it's worked out well.
Yeah. Let me just ask, while we're on memorable people, did you know Roy Harris? Or did your unions have to come in contact with Roy Harris over in Savannah?
In Georgia?
Yeah.
Roy Harris in Georgia?
Yeah.
Wasn't he a speaker? Wasn't he something in
He
politics?
was part of the Talmadge group for a real long time, and I remember that he was anti-union.
You remember what?
He was anti-union, and he was coming out of Savannah.
Roy Harris, no?
It doesn't ring a bell, huh?
Nobody come out of Savannah named Roy Harris that I know of. Seemed like I remember a Roy Harris, but he must have. But he was involved in state politics.
Okay.
Now,
Probably the same one.
Herman was not too bad. Whenever, of course, Herman's still living and all. But,
Mm-hmm.
I was acquainted with Herman pretty well. He knew me by my first name, and I always called him Governor. Even when he was senator, I called him, Governor. And I left Washington one Saturday morning, going to Daytona to a state comp meeting. And on those old on those old National Airlines, the first class compartment was in the back, and I'm sitting back there, and Herman come in. And I asked him, I said, where are you going, Governor? He said, I'm going to Brunswick. I said, hell, this thing don't go to Brunswick. He said, well, I'm going to Jacksonville, and I'll come back to Brunswick. He said, I've got to address a Chamber of Commerce meeting or something in Brunswick. And we talked all the way down, and we chatted, And he asked me, he says, Brother Merritt, he said, how's politics in Georgia? I said, Herman, you asking me how politics is in Georgia, and when you're supposed to be the most astute politician in Georgia? I said, haven't you heard? He said, what? I said, that guy from Augusta is going to cut Senator Russell's butt in the next election. He's quite a big, his name slips me right now. He says, he come up out the sphere, he says, what do you say? And I said, well, let me tell you something, Senator. Dick Russell come to Savannah, Georgia on a Saturday morning, get off an airplane and go over and walk, take a taxi to the city hall, and walk from the city hall out to the Soda Hotel at 11 o'clock in the morning, I said, there won't be 3 people that recognize him. I said, he's got to be such a big shot in Washington to nobody in Georgia knows him anymore. And I said, that guy, he was governor. What's that guy from Augusta was governor?
I can't think of his name. But I know who you mean. Van Diver? Was it Van Diver?
So I said, that's it. He said, well, we need Senator Russell. I said, well, Governor, you did it to Senator George. I said, you cut his butt whenever he's the strongest man in the United States Senate. He sat back down and he says, well, I guess you're right, Joe. I guess you're right. I haven't thought about it. I said, I'll tell you what. Now, my wife is meeting me in the Jacksonville River. I said, we'll walk out, and she's going to pick me up. And, let's see if she recognizes you. We went out to the place, and I said, and he was walking alongside of me, talking, and I hugged her, and I said, by the way, honey, you know this guy here? She looked at him. She said, no, I don't think I know you. I don't think I know him. I said, look close. By that time, he kind of took it. She said, oh, yeah. She said, you Herman Talmadge. That was in the week. The next week was Memorial Week. And guess who addressed the big gathering out of Hunter Field? Senator Russell. He hadn't been to Georgia in 10 years.
Not so surprising.
I got along pretty good with Herman.
You think he was a good governor?
My best friend was Bo Ginn.
Oh, yeah.
And, I was, they convinced Bo to, I don't know who it was, but they convinced Bo to run for governor. And I knew Bo was going to have a lot of trouble. If he went with the blacks, they were going to whip him by doing that. If he didn't go with the blacks, then the black was going to whip him. So I knew it was a trouble. But I think what Bo really wanted was to be the governor. And about that time, he was kind of figuring on a vacancy in the Senate.
Didn't work out well for him in his career, did it?
But Bo's not a thief. Bo just, they spent a lot of money and people just walked away from his campaign bills.
Yeah.
I guess Bo had to pay them.
Probably out of his pocket. Do you think Talmadge was a good governor?
I think he was. He didn't hurt the labor movement too much. He was supposed to address about 3 of the Georgia State FLCL conventions that I was at. He couldn't make. I understand he was kind of tipsy.
Well, he kind of had a reputation for it. But just the same, he pulled himself off it. Do you think generally he was good to labor, though, huh?
I wouldn't say he was good for him, no. I'd say that he didn't hurt him. He wasn't like his daddy. He tempered him a good bit.
Do you remember when his father was governor?
Yeah.
What'd you think about him?
He was strictly for the farmer.
Yeah.
Strictly. Agriculture. They used to laugh and say, live down here, that Ray. They used to laugh and say if you ever wanted to get a guy out of jail on a park, you just hook a big old black Angus bull in his lawn. Just lead a big old black Angus or a red and white faced bull up on his lawn, like $2,000 worth. You could park anybody you wanted.
Well, maybe not so good for labor. It's your rare iron worker who can afford a black Angus. Um, Let me ask this, while back on the past, did you ever miss, or do you ever miss doing the construction work?
Well, I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
I'm still active. Well, like today, for instance, the lady that works here for my wife, she's in the process of swapping automobiles. So she got a little station wagon out front there. The starter give out on it, bendix on it, messed up. So I took it back in the back, jacked it up. I took the old starter off and got a new one, put a new one on for her today. I'm always fabricating a trailer. I do a lot of work around it. Like today, I fixed that starter and picked a couple of friends a bushel of okra. I run about a half a mile of electric fence down there.
Just did that today, huh?
Yeah.
Just in your spare time?
If it quits raining, I'm gonna mow about 20 acres of hay, and I'll mow it today and tether it tomorrow, and bale it the next winter. All that hay out there, I bale it. I stay busy. I work.
Yeah. What made you decide to move out here? What made you decide to stay out in the country?
Well, when I was business agent, I was living in town, and had I built a duplex apartment myself in town. So it was getting a little crowded and small. Getting moved in, around. I was going to move out to me a place, give me about 75 acres, build me a house right in the middle of it, and let no damn body get within 1,000 feet of it. And that's what I got. My property goes all the way back to that road back there, all the way over here, this canal, all the way to that gate, like twice that far this way. And then a trailer down there, it's just, I got a guy living in there more or less as a caretaker. Look around, he watches out for this. I'll be out of town. This house, when I bought it, was 25 acres. This was 18 acres of this house. It cost me $25,000.
Oh my. When was that?
22 years ago. But now, you gotta.
What I wanted to ask you about was the different kind of events in a union's life. Organizing drives, elections, negotiations. Any stick out in your mind?
I've never participated in an organizing drive except one. That was a Daniels Construction Company organizing. We made an effort on, and it was fragmented, I thought. It was supposed to be a building trades effort, but there was a lot of people went at it on their own, like the pipe fitters. They decided they were going to organize Daniels. And they went after them tooth, tongue, and toenail, spent a lot of money. Had a man named Shep Wright, brought him up to Texas to run it. It was organized, covered 7 states. And they had the election. Shep was going to win it 2-1, and they lost it about 5-1.
Why such a gap?
I don't know, but it's awful suspicious to me that the National Labor Relations Board field examiner permitted Mr. Daniels concerned to furnish the ballot boxes. They furnished the ballot boxes on each job, and in order to prove to everybody that they couldn't get into it, they raised up the keyhole. I mean, on the lock, they raised it. Well, now, I told Shep that under no conditions will I permit those lots to be grazed. He said, why? I said, well, how can you prove that lot is not in another lot? I said, how can you prove that that ballot box itself has not been duplicated? And whenever the NLRB man takes it from that election site, carries it back to Greenville, and it sits in Greenville, South Carolina, the home of Daniels Construction Company, for 3 or 4 days before they open them up to count them. I said, Shep, something's wrong. And he never took my advice. So, now, whenever they brazed up the keyhole on those big Yale locks, how can you tell whether that's the original lock that was on that box to start with?
And so,
And when you let somebody take those boxes out of your sight, that's it. See, whenever we had an election in Savannah, in the first congressional district, and we ran Elliott Hagan against the incumbent Prince Preston, and they had a little bit of problem, and he won the election, and then the next time we had an election, they had some problems with the boxes, and the vote machine wanted a recount in Savannah. We beat the man by 111 votes in Chatham County through the union effort. We beat him by 111 votes. Now they wanted a recount. So we put the boxes out to Travis Field and that warehouse out there. We're going to let them stay for a week and a half for the election commission. I tell you what we did. We put a 24-hour guard around those boxes for 3 weeks.
it was out there for 3
I
weeks.
said the boxes there for several weeks. I meant several days. But we kept a 24-hour guard on those boxes around the clock until the man came back and counted them, recertified them. And the exact amount of votes was counted the second time as well as the first time. Now, we hadn't to watch those boxes. One of those machines would have been screwed with.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a guarantee. Any other political campaigns you got involved in? Did you get involved in any other political campaigns?
Well, we after we elected Elliott Hagan, we stayed with him, and he told me, we went to Washington to the legislative conference and went around and talked to Elliott, and he told us he was undecided about the Randall Griffin bill, and we reminded Elliott that the Building Trades Council in Savannah, Georgia, had persuaded him to run for the job and had guaranteed him that we would furnish him all the manpower and as much money as we could get up to see that he beat Prince Preston. Of course, Prince Preston had voted for the Taft-Hartley law, and he went along with us. And then when the time comes to vote for the Randall Griffin bill, we went up there and talked with him and asked him to vote for us. And he said he would think about it. Well, we knew what he meant. So I talked to him on the side. I said, Elliott, if you can't vote for us, don't vote. I said, I have some emergency at home where you can't vote. I said, don't vote either way. And then we could be safe, talking. Oh, he says, I'll have to vote. I said, well, okay. I said, but now, Elliott, if you vote for the Randall Griffin bill, we're going to cut your butt at the next election. So he laughed about it, and he voted for the Randall Griffin bill. And we moved heaven and earth, and got Bogan to run against him, and we beat him.
Was it a tough campaign?
It was a tough one.
Yeah.
We beat him.
Mhm.
Bo was his administrative assistant, but the time that Bo decided to run against him, he had already left Elliott because he couldn't put up with Elliott's high-handedness.
Mhm.
And then he was working for Herman Talmadge as Herman's executive assistant.
Yeah.
So Herman gave him some leave of absence, and all Bo ran. Bo beat him.
Well, why on earth did he vote against Taft-Hartley and then go ahead and vote for Landon Griffin?
Well, let me straighten out. Prince Preston voted for Landon Griffin. Taft-Hartley.
Yeah.
Prince Preston in 1948.
Oh, right, but the other one wasn't
He
elected
voted
yet,
for
sorry.
Taft-Hartley.
Right.
And then we suffered on him a while, went through with it, and we brooded over it. So we finally got Elliott Higgins ran against him one time, and he beat him. Prince Preston beat the hell out of him the first time he ran against him. Well, we figured that we could take Elliott Higgins, his name was in front of people, already knew it. We could take Elliott Higgins and try some things that had never been tried before, and beat him because Elliott Higgins had a name recognition. And Elliott promised us that he would treat us fairly. We didn't ask him to sell his soul to us. We asked him to treat us fairly.
Yeah.
And by asking him not to vote for the Landon Griffin law, he could have let it go. He could have abstained from voting.
Well, what on earth made him vote for it? Why would he do such a thing?
Because somebody paid him to, I think. I think some lobbyists got with him and paid him.
Well,
Because Elliott was a mercenary. My experience with him was I would have a union meeting and we would take up donations, collections. I'd maybe pick up $400 or $500, and I'd be down on Monday. I would be downtown, and I would give Elliott the money along with the names of the boys that contributed it, and he would take it, put it in his pocket. I don't know whether he ever wrote it up or whether he didn't. I don't know, but I'd give him the names of the individuals, like the $2, the $3, the $5, and all. And I imagine that my local union, over a period of 8-9 months there, I imagine we contributed $12,000-$14,000 to it.
so he must have had some powerful friends.
None of it come out the treasury. It came out of free will donations.
Yeah.
Hell, I put about $10 a week in it out of my pocket for the whole time. But Elliott voted for Landon Griffin, and that was his stroke that lost his Senate, Congress seat.
Do you think that maybe that was the problem, that there was now maybe this sounds a little cynical, but do you think that maybe that's been one of Labor's problems with politicians, that we just can't match the money?
That's it. No, you can't match the money. There's no way you can match the money.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, a politician in the state of Georgia is some concern about the medical bills. They go ahead, they'll put $250,000 in a person's campaign through employee donations, they call it. Now, and then they go up on the premiums on the people. You pay for it. But how can you compete with that? You can't compete with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like this woman, I guess she's a Democrat, that runs that big nursing home conglomerate out of Augusta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Makes all these huge political contributions on behalf of her employees. She'll say, Jane Doe is mark her for $5,000. Well, hell, they give it. She don't put it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You think there's such a thing as an honest politician?
No, I don't really think there is. One of my old friends was promised a job on the administration in Savannah. He was promised the chief of the fire department. Instead of giving him the chief of the fire department's job, they gave him a lesser job with quite a bit less money and prestige. And he was furious. He was enraged. He ran back and forth in that meeting that morning, and he hollered. He says, "You show me a GD politician, and I'll show you a GD liar and a thief every time." He says, "By God," he says, "I ought to know. I've been one for 30 years."
Well, so you met some politicians who were nice guys, but never one that was an honest guy, huh?
Well, they don't consider it dishonesty to take a $50,000 political contribution and vote for the seatbelt law.
Yeah. They think they're just serving the public interest.
Yeah. Well, it's very easy to say how many lives that they're going to save, those little children and those women they're going to save.
Mm-hmm.
Very easy for them. But the seatbelt law is a prime example.
Uh-huh. Why so?
Well, who wants seatbelts? I don't want them. I don't want them. Hell, I've been running cars all my life. I never figured the seatbelt helped me. But why should I have to pay $250 to $300 for a seatbelt? If you want them, mandatory. I mean, don't make them mandatory. Make them voluntary. And I know damn well that when the seatbelt law was passed in Georgia, a lot of money changed hands by the manufacturers of the seatbelts.
What would you say was the hardest part of your union work?
Attending funerals.
Yeah.
Attending funerals. See your friends being put away. And remember the things that you've been through with them on, all the things you suffered together with, and all the things you've done together.
Mm-hmm. Friendships helped you get through hard times, huh? Friendships help you get through hard times. Friendships and help you get through hard times.
That's right. Like one the other day, one of my friends here, he went down, looked like he went down in about 2 years. He went from 75 years old, he was real healthy, came out here, went down there, picked himself 4 or 5 bushels of corn. The rest of 2 years he buried him.
Sorry. Tell me, what you retired then?
Yes.
And I've seen your house. It's a very nice house. You were telling me that you did most of the work yourself. You built yourself the workshop. You cleared out that road. You remodeled this house.
Carport on it.
Mm-hmm.
Big carport I built that on now.
So my question is when you're going to retire?
That's the question my wife asked. She wants to do a lot of traveling, but you got to remember I retired from traveling.
That's right.
I retired from traveling. I'm satisfied here.
Tell me, what about social problems? Did the ironworkers experience any of this problem of divisions between ethnic groups or races?
We don't, we never had any ethnic problems. There was quite a bit of Jews in the ironworkers.
Yeah.
But they was in the ornamental. They was artistic and a lot. They did beautiful work. And then we had the Swedes.
Yeah.
They was There was the riggers, and, heavy equipment people. But we never segregated them out. Now, we never had many blacks. There was some that was Cracker Jacks, iron workers. Some of them was supervisors on rods and everything, reinforcing steel, some of the best in the business. But our only concern was this. We got to work for a contractor and make that contractor a profit in order for him to stay in business to continue to work us. Now, we give him inferior mechanics or inferior iron workers that can't turn out 8 hours of work, profitable 8 hours of work for 8 hours of pay. How in the hell is that man going to stay in business? Wrong. Because he's got stiff competition.
Did you have an apprenticeship?
Oh, yes. Yes, sir. You sure do.
Uh-huh.
And that just started since I came in. A few years after I came in, the apprenticeship program was expanded. But up until that time, if you was a qualified iron worker and was working for a contractor, and he was satisfied with you, and he was eligible, you joined a union. But when it came down to the point where you had to have, in a raising gang, you had to have 4 men in a raising gang, putting up that steel like those boys up top. And one of them had to be a black, and he didn't know his rear end from first base, and could get the other guy killed. That's wrong.
Yeah.
That's wrong. And I think this court case on this affirmative action is going to prove it's wrong.
Did they not have to go through apprenticeship?
No, you know what? I'll tell you what I've had them to do, and I warned my local unions about it. There was a wave of blacks going through the country who come into a local union and say, I want a job. I work with a local union where you got a skilled trade. I want a job. They do it in other crafts too. You say, well, are you an iron worker? No, sir, but I can do it. Well, have you ever worked as an iron worker? No, sir, but I've seen them do it. I know I can do it. And you say, well, we can put your application into the apprenticeship program. What's that? And you explain it to her. And you ain't got a job to start with. You know, you ain't got no openings for nobody. Ain't nobody called in for nobody. So you tell him, so put your name on the list, and if I can find some work for you, we'll give you a call. 2 days later, you get a damn government inspector coming in, following him. And 3 days later, he sues the local union for $500,000.
I see. When did this start? Like late 60s?
Huh?
Late 60s, would you say?
The minute they opened up the gate, said that they was a stroke of the pen, they said they was qualified to do anything they wanted to do.
What about Italians? Did you get any Italians? Any Italians in the iron worker?
Yeah, quite a bit of them.
Yeah.
Up in Philadelphia, we had an Italian general vice president.
What I wanted to ask you, to kind of lead us to wrapping up, was your perception of the labor movement in Georgia today. How do you see the labor movement going in Georgia today?
I couldn't answer that question because I had got out the labor movement in Georgia whenever I was assigned to the Tennessee Valley Authority District Council, and I didn't service this Georgia or any other, like South Carolina or even Florida since 65, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I never attended any of the labor conventions. I was dedicated towards my council in Tennessee, and I just lived here and commuted back into, and I would attend the local union meeting here in Savannah maybe twice a year.
What about the nation then? How do you see the labor going in the nation? It seems to be having a difficult time.
I think it's stagnated. You don't have the old heads like John L. Lewis, Walter Reuther, and George Meany. You don't have those people are gone in, and nobody can ever replace them.
Mm-hmm.
And they were out on top of everything. There was I don't think we can ever replace them.
What do you think made them great?
Desire to do something for the fellow man.
Mm-hmm.
Desire to come up. Like, of course, John L. Lewis was not a coal miner. He was a professional labor organizer. But I had an iron worker in my local union. His name was Adam Ulch. He was a Welsh. And his father and his grandfather and great-grandfather came from England, from as coal miners. And he was short, very short and stocky. And he and I was talking one day. He was cursing his misfortune of being so short and stocky. And he related to the fact that his people had been miners for a century or more, in a couple of centuries, and that they grew to fit the work.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me that his grandfather had told him that he had gone for as high as a year and a half working in the mines and never seen the sun.
That's tragic.
They would get into the mine way before daylight and work until way after dark. And he said that his family had to work in there with him. So sometimes that even his wife would go in and pick up coal. He was the miner. The miner got so much a ton to handle bring that coal out the mine, and if he couldn't bring out enough to feed him that day, he'd have to bring his kids in there to help him load it, and he had to furnish his own dynamite, pay for his own dynamite, and he said that the conditions was so deplorable. Now that's what people like John L. Lewis rectifies.
Mm-hmm.
Child labor.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said that he'd worked in the mine before he became an iron worker. And he said, and he showed me how they would lay down and get the shoulder up and pick that coal out. And he said that vein would be maybe 36 inches, and so you dig it, just go back up in there 36 inches and dig it out, throw it out behind you. That's what's made labor unions. That's what's made them. And it's getting back to it. It's going back to it. Right now, a man and his wife can't survive on one income. They've got to have two incomes. Where in the old days, they lived on one income. And his wife took care of the home, had a 24-hour job, raised her children, and was proud to do it. But now she's got to go out and sling hamburgers and raise the kids and cook the meals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's happened to it?
I found we went to hell in a handcart.
Now, that's what made unions, but now they've got around it. Got around it now, and they don't want to face it head on. What they're doing now is playing woman's lib up to the hilt to make her resent
any action that would straighten it out. And they still don't pay her but half what they pay a man in certain jobs, if they can get away with it.
What, when you became an iron worker, what made you become an iron worker?
The money,
The money.
an iron worker always made 50 cents an hour above a carpenter, a pipe fitter.
Mm-hmm.
It's the highest paying job in there, but you gamble with your life every day.
What do you think would be, what do you think would make a younger person, one of the young kids coming up, be an iron worker today? Do they still get better money?
I would say, well, following in his father's footsteps, most of it.
Okay.
We've got, in my local union, I know I've got some, dozens of them, just 2 and 3 generations. Like the Lanier family up here. There was 2 of the older men, Palmer and Monsess Lanier. Each of their sons was iron workers, followed into it. And Monsess has got 4 sons in it, and each of them's got 3 sons in it themselves. You got about 36 or 37 Laniers that's in the Iron Workers Union in Savannah, Georgia.
You got half the local right there.
One of the old original patriots is living, and he controls that bunch. They still mind him and pay attention to him, talk to him about the jobs, where to work at it. And out of his 4 sons, all 4 of them are supervision, top supervision. And each one of them has got anywhere from 2 to 4 when they're working. And whenever they have kids, they'll be in it too.
Let me ask about how this gets set up. I want to get clear on this. Now, when union men, do they go out and contract for themselves, a local for themselves, with a contractor?
No. We have what they call a hiring hall.
Ah, okay.
And the man, when he gets laid off on a Friday afternoon, he'll come in on a Monday morning and put his name on the list. It goes numerically. Maybe he's 15 on the list. Well, when you send 14 people out, his name comes up on top. Now, that's another thing you have to be careful about, is that the contractor has a right to ask for a man. And this guy on the number 14, if he asks for him, you're duty bound to send him. Then you got a beef with the other 13.
Yeah.
But they understand it because they get called for themselves too. Like the guy calls for a man, he wants him to go to work at a certain place where he's been there before. And he's familiar with the customs and all of, say, the cyanamide plant. And that's what he wants. And that's what you give him. You just have to take the static with it. You just have to...
Well, then the guy who runs the hiring hall, is it like a committee that runs the hiring hall?
Oh, no. The business agent is the authority.
Oh, okay.
He got a tablet there, and when he comes in, he can't sign above, he's got to sign below because all the names are above already. So whenever he needs, say, 16 or 18 men to start a job up, he goes, and the guy wants 4 raising gang people, he wants 4, 6 boat-up people, and he wants some rodmen, reinforcing rodmen.
Well, the business agent knows who the rodmen are, who the finishers are, and he goes in, he takes the names off numerically as he comes down, and a lot of times he plays favoritism.
Mm-hmm.
He gets around it. A lot of times, not a lot of times, but I have caught him. The guy will say, the guy on the top of the list would be a good young connector. And the guy will call in and he'll want a connector. Well, you have to send this guy to him, and then you go out there and find out he's putting in rods. And there's nothing you can do about it but raise hell.
Yeah. Do people ever go on strikes about contractors trying to get around this hiring hall? Do contractors try and get around it?
Yeah, they have contractors call for them, just like I said. The contractor has the right to call for a man by name.
But what if the contractor tries to call somebody up, say at their house, instead of go through the hiring hall?
Well, that's frowned on.
Yeah. And
but he'll call him up to his house and find out whether he's able to go to work, and then he'll call you the next day, but you don't know he's talked to the man.
Yeah.
You suspect it, but you don't know it. If you did know it, there'd be nothing you can do about it, really.
what if someone came into town, an iron worker came into town who decided he didn't want to be a member of the union anymore, and he showed up at a contractor's door and said, "Hire me"?
Well, the contractor wouldn't hire him. I don't think the contractor would hire him. Because the highest and the best evidence of a qualified iron worker would be his union membership.
All right. Do the iron workers maintain the standards?
Like I never said. I remember when we was working on a cotton mill in Alabama City, Alabama, for a contractor when you drove rivets. And we was driving rivets, and we was getting around 250, 300 hot rivets driving a day. And so it was against the union rules, but he put the word out on the job that he would give 10 cents a rivet all over 300. That was the average was 300. And he would give you 10 cents a rivet on every rivet above the 300. So the two guys in the gang with me and the old heater, we got together and figured out that we would 8-hour days. We went to work, and the first day that we had was on the 10 cents. We drove 630 something rivets. And then every day we were getting 500-600 rivets and making a lot of money on that extra 10 cents. So the timekeeper was a mercenary individual. So he went to, on the 10 cents, we drove 630 something rivets. And then every day we were getting 500-600 rivets and making a lot of money on that extra 10 cents. So the timekeeper was a mercenary individual. So he went to Ray Ledbetter and told Ray Ledbetter that them SOBs was cheating him out of this and that, and he ought to cut out that diamond rivet and make them drive in rivets. And Ledbetter, I understand, Ledbetter really read him the right act. He said, "Let me tell you something." He said, "I'm getting 10 cents a rivet above 300. He said, "I'm getting 300. He said, and if I cut it out," he said, "they'll go back to the 300. He said, "Those rivets will cost you about a quarter a piece." He said, "So I figure I'll make it 15 cents a rivet." He said, "Now you tend to your business."
Yeah, he shut up then?
But being like an iron worker is, we was running through the building, drove them all up, and went to the side of the building. There was a wall, a side wall, where you didn't have about one-third less rivets on each one of those points, because it didn't go the other way. And we tried the best we could. So the first day we got around 325, working like we did before. So we just quit and left. Just we walked off and left. And went somewhere else.
An important lesson. If you could give like advice to younger people in the iron workers or in the labor movement generally, what would it be?
Do a day's work. Every day you can, do a day's work for your day's pay. Take care of your local union. That's going to be your livelihood for the rest of your life. You're not going to get out and get anything else. There's only one business agent's job is better than what you got. And you ain't going to have no chance to get that. Unless you're going to go contracting, I'd say that you do everything you can to further your local union, and be careful and not ride a good horse to death. Give them an 8 hours worth of work for the 8 hours paid.
And talk to Cole, the business agent, and he'd tell me about it.
So you'd read the directory, you'd come into town, you look at your directory,
Well,
and
the union iron worker's got that book with him if he's traveling. You know, tell him where the locals at. How you go to work, maybe.
Okay.
We left here one time and didn't have nothing to do, didn't have no work. So we left here and went up to Atlanta. From Atlanta we went to Roanoke. From Roanoke we went to Richmond, moving around, and then finally wound up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I went to work up there because I had a job. I found a job.
So you just go from town to town where this is the union local and check it out. So is there a lot of moving around with iron workers?
Not now, as much as not now. It used to be as itinerant.
Okay.
Very seldom did you ever have a place that's got to stay more than a year. Move on.
Is that because the building trades, I mean, the building itself varies from year to year and place to
Come
place?
in like maybe light on a paper mill. And the paper mill will take 18 months to build. But when the paper mill cut loose, he would on another job, maybe with the contractor, go another job.
Gotcha. Now,
And there's a lot of the old iron workers that was worked at the trade till they was 60, 65, but you always took care of them. Always found them something that they could do in the tool room, or maybe supervising the fold-ups or something. You always find something for them to do.
is there, it just gets too hard to go up high when you get older?
For some it would be, some it wouldn't be. If you stayed with it, it's no problem. If you get off of it, you have to get back onto it. Climbing is a hard job.
Yeah. Is it scary?
Look out for them.
If you had to do something all over again, if you said, I would never do it that way again, what would it be? Would you do everything the same?
I can't recall anything that I made I mean, it's personal decisions is one thing, but I mean, in the business of a trade or something, I don't think I can really say that I made any mistakes that I would want to go back and correct. I've had a few people I like to have broke their heads, but it's over. They're gone. That's it. But I was when I first was in the racket and into the business, iron working. I was a young man. I was a prize fighter. I had 100 fights. And, didn't lose too many. And naturally, I was kind of looked up to by the element in the local union. And I was on the road to becoming a hoodlum, a bum, I guess. You know, with that element in the local union, in the ironworkers on the jobs. And one day I come into the office. One night I come into the job and getting ready to go home, and the old man, fellow by the name of Steve Bass, he said, "Joe, take your belt home with you tonight. Tool belt." He said, "Take your belt home with you and your tools home with you tonight." I said, "Huh?" He said, "Leave them home in the morning." He said, "Come back out." He said, "I want you to go pushing." That's a foreman's job. He said, "I want you to go pushing." I looked at him and said, "Hell, I don't want no pusher's job." He said, "Well," he said, "I got one open. I want you to push I want you to push the raising gang." I said, "Steve, for 25 cents an hour or more, $10 a week, I got to work my friends." I said, "I ain't gonna have them long." He said, "Hell, I'm getting along good like I am. I just as soon stay." He said, "Joe," he said, "take your belt home and leave it, or don't come back." I looked at him. He said, "I looked at you." He said, "I think you were saving." I said, "What the hell do you mean?" He said, "You got Homer Stogner, you got Blackie Hutchison, you got King Pittman," and he named off about 6 of the old heads there on the job. He said, "Now, you got to remember, at one time in their life, they were just like you." And he says, "And now, what did you rather be? Would you rather be Homer and King or Steve Bass when you get this age?" I said, "Well, hell, Steve, I don't know nothing about joints." I did, but I said, "I don't know nothing about joints." He says, "Well, Joe, if you run into any trouble," he said, "I'll be there. I'll be right behind you all the way through this job." He said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "All right." I come back and I went to pushing. And I made a good foreman. And one day we was on the top of the gantry crane up there about 15 stories, about 12 stories high, putting an A-frame together. And I couldn't get the thing, I couldn't get the big 6-inch pin through the hole. And it was in a hell of a cautious place. And you had to, and he came up the ladder. And on the way by, he told the signal man, he said, "Set your satchel down, doctor." He said, "You're fired." He said, "Go get your money." And he said, "Go." And run him off the top of the gantry. And he hollered up to me, he said, "How much you want?" I said, "Half an inch up." He signaled the crane and it came up a half an inch. I said, "That's a little bit too much." Put the pin right in. I asked him, I said, "What'd you find? What happened to the signal man?" He said, "Joe, you didn't see it." He said, "No, I told you I'd be with you." He said, "You didn't see it." He said, "What that dirty, rotten SOB was doing was delaying the job." He said, "When you give him a half inch, he give you 3/4. He said, then when you come down, want to come down a quarter, you come down a half. And he said, then you'd have to hammer and beat and worry about it." He said, "I watch him." He said, "I got a pair of glasses over in the office." He said, "I'll watch him." And he said,
That's what he was doing. The first thing he wanted, he was trying to get your job. So, old man Bass put me on the right road. I got away from that element, and from that day on, most of the time, I was a foreman. And I met him many, many years later when I was on the international payroll over in Charlotte, North Carolina. And he was hanging around the Charlotte local union over there. And he'd already retired, but I made it quite evident to the business agents over there that Mr. Bass got anything he wanted. Anything Mr. Bass wanted or needed, if he couldn't do it, call me, and I would come over and take care of the problem. So I think that Mr. Bass is the man that put me on the right road to where I'm sitting today. He never had any children. He kind of took me, he kind of took me on, but that's the reason I guess that I've got what I got. If I'd have stuck with the bums, they're still around. Okay, they're sleeping in flop houses. They're still boozing.
Yeah.
Some of my old friends.
That's a good way to wrap it up, I think. This has been Chris Lutz interviewing Joe Merritt of the Iron Workers on June 29th, 1995.